Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions, and what I'm about to tell you isn't something I'm proud of, but it's real, it's raw, and it all started with 2 empty plates. Not a dramatic affair, not some secret text message, just dinner, or the lack of it. 2 plates, one still in the dishwasher, the other on the counter, covered in cling wrap, untouched. That second plate, I made that for my wife. It had her name on a little sticky note, literally. I started doing that because otherwise, she'd forget it was hers and toss it in the trash. That's where our marriage was. I'd been leaving her meals like a roommate leaving leftovers. Sticky notes instead of kisses. Microwaved silence instead of conversation. She'd walk in late every night, eyes glued to her phone, toss her bag on the couch, then vanish into the bedroom with a sigh that felt like a door slamming shut. Except I was still standing on the porch, emotionally speaking. You know what she'd say when I asked her if she could spare time for dinner? Not a no, not even a maybe later. Just, I don't have time. Like I was offering a brochure instead of asking for my wife's company. The phrase dug its roots into our daily life. I don't have time became her morning coffee, her goodnight kiss, her substitute for everything I once meant to her. So eventually, I stopped asking, and I started replying with a phrase of my own. I don't have money. It started as a joke in my head. She'd ask for something, groceries, a ride, half the rent, and I'd say it under my breath. But soon, it wasn't just in my head. One day, she asked, "Can you send me your half for the electricity bill?" I replied, "I don't have money." No explanation. No excuse. Just, her words, flipped. She narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" I shrugged, stirred my cereal, and said, "I'm slammed." She didn't laugh. She didn't even look surprised. It became a script. She'd come home late. I didn't have time to text. I'd skip the grocery run. Didn't have money. She'd miss our anniversary dinner. Work's insane. I'd ignore her Venmo request. Finances are tight. At first, it felt like petty revenge. But eventually, it felt necessary. I had become so small in our marriage I needed to hear my own voice, even if it echoed in the worst way possible. And then came the moment that ripped the ground out from under me. It was a Tuesday. Why is it always a Tuesday? And she was in the shower. Her phone lit up on the counter beside me while I was brushing my teeth. One notification. One name I didn't recognize. And the words, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to do it again." My hand froze mid-brush. Foam slid down my chin. And for a moment, I wasn't a man. I was a puddle in sweatpants. I didn't check the rest. I didn't need to. She had time. She just didn't have it for me. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or cry or break anything. I simply placed her untouched plate in the fridge, wrote a new sticky note, asked him to cover dinner next time, and went to bed on the couch. I didn't sleep that night. The couch was cold, but not as cold as the silence between us. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, listening to its blades slice the air with the same rhythm as my thoughts. Around 3:17 a.m., I finally sat up, grabbed my laptop, and opened a spreadsheet, not for work, but for evidence. I started logging everything. Every late arrival. Every networking event. Every time she said no time. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to find. Maybe a pattern, maybe peace. But the more I typed, the more something broke inside me. The next morning, she acted like everything was normal. She waltzed into the kitchen, humming some song I didn't recognize, hair still wet from the shower. She grabbed a protein bar and barely looked at me. I asked, "How was your night?" And she replied, "Exhausting," without missing a beat. My blood turned to slush. I nodded and walked out. Didn't argue. Didn't accuse. Just left. Later that day, while at work, I stared at her contact name on my phone. Dana, wife. It felt like a label on something I didn't own anymore. I clicked it. Scrolled up through our messages. The last meaningful text from her was 4 months ago, and it wasn't even romantic. It said, "Can you take the trash out before I get home?" So I changed her name in my phone to "She doesn't have time." That small, pathetic act gave me the dumbest comfort. But what really kicked it all off was what happened the following weekend. She was out again. Another women's entrepreneurship dinner. I stayed home, made myself boxed mac and cheese, the kind she always mocked me for eating. I was halfway through an old episode of Columbo when my phone buzzed. It was a message from her friend, Ivy. We weren't close, but she'd always been polite. Her message said, "Hey, I didn't know Dana was seeing someone else. Are you guys okay?" I froze. I didn't even know what to type. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't even told myself. I replied, "What do you mean?" She sent a photo. It was Dana. At the restaurant she claimed to be at, sure. But she wasn't with clients or colleagues. She was with him, some guy in a tailored suit with a man bun and a tan that screamed he doesn't work in insurance. They were sharing dessert. Her hand was on his. He was laughing. My stomach knotted so tightly I thought I might throw up. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there staring at the screen as the mac and cheese turned to paste in my mouth. Ivy must have realized she messed up. She sent a follow-up. "I'm so sorry. I thought you knew." I didn't reply. When Dana came home, I was sitting in the dark. She flipped on the light and blinked like she didn't expect to see me. "Oh," she said, almost startled. "You didn't go out?" "No," I replied. "Didn't have the money." She nodded slowly, slipped off her heels, and went to the bedroom without saying another word. That night, I didn't sleep again. I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a list titled, "Things I Know But Pretend I Don't." At the top of the list, "She's cheating on me." Underneath that, "She thinks I'm too spineless to do anything about it." She was right, at least for now. But something was shifting inside me. Not anger, not courage, just detachment. The kind of quiet unraveling where things don't explode, they just fall apart one thread at a time. I started thinking, if she can lie with a smile, maybe I can too. If she doesn't have time, maybe I don't have money. If she doesn't feel guilty, maybe I shouldn't either. But I wasn't ready to confront her, not yet. I wanted to see how far she was willing to go if I just kept nodding. I wanted to know if she'd eventually slip, or if I'd finally stop caring. I didn't plan revenge. I'm not that guy. I didn't start lifting weights, or tracking her every move, or plotting anything cinematic. I just stopped being available. Quietly. Fully. Like water slowly draining from a sink until the basin shines dry under the light. She didn't even notice at first. 3 days after I saw the photo, Dana asked me to transfer my half of the car insurance payment. I stared at the message for 20 minutes before replying with a single sentence. "Sorry, things are tight this month." No emoji. No follow-up. Just that. She never responded. That weekend, I stayed in again. And for the first time in years, I didn't wait up. I didn't pretend to fall asleep on the couch. I just turned off my phone, microwaved a frozen burrito, and watched 3 straight hours of some low-budget crime documentary where literally everyone was guilty. It felt oddly soothing. When she got home, she didn't bother being quiet. She slammed the door, dropped her heels on the floor, and huffed as she walked past me. "Did you forget to pay the internet bill?" she asked from the hallway. I looked up. "I thought you didn't have time to use the internet." She didn't laugh. She stood there, one eyebrow raised, her mouth slightly open like she was about to say something biting. But then she just rolled her eyes and walked away. Later that night, I opened my laptop and changed all the account passwords. Not out of spite. Just because I was tired of being the only one maintaining the life we were pretending to live together. And that's when I found it. Her email. Left open. I hadn't meant to snoop. I swear. I was just checking to see if my own account was still linked for the Netflix subscription. But when I saw a subject line in bold that read, "Loved seeing you again. You make me forget I'm married," I froze. That wasn't a work email. That wasn't a newsletter. That was confirmation. I clicked it. There it was. A thread between Dana and some guy named Travis. Dozens of messages. Dinners. Hotels. Excuses about late meetings. Even photos of drinks, of his dog, of her in a dress I didn't recognize, taken in a mirror that definitely wasn't in our house. I didn't read every message. I couldn't. I just stared at them long enough to feel like I was reading someone else's life. Someone who looked like me but didn't exist anymore. That night, I left a note on her side of the bed. "You didn't have time. I didn't have money. Now neither of us has what we thought we did." I didn't pack a bag. I didn't slam the door. I just went for a drive. I didn't know where I was going, just that it needed to be somewhere without her. I ended up in a 24-hour diner 2 towns over. I sat there in a booth at 2:34 a.m., sipping burnt coffee and staring at the laminated menu like it held answers to questions I couldn't form. The waitress, her name was Bev, asked if I was okay. I said yes. She didn't believe me. She gave me a free slice of pie anyway. I nearly cried into it. Not because of the betrayal, but because someone noticed I existed. Around 4 a.m., I drove home. The lights were off. Her car was in the driveway. Everything looked painfully normal. But the second I stepped inside, I knew something had changed. Her laptop was gone. So was her toothbrush. And her wedding ring was sitting on the kitchen counter beside a single, folded note. It said, "I needed time. You needed distance. Now we have both." No name. No explanation. Just that. I stood in the kitchen with the fridge humming behind me, holding that note like it might self-destruct if I breathed too hard. I wanted to scream, to tear it up, to call her and demand why. But I didn't. I just put it back on the counter and wrote under it, "Good. Because now I can finally afford to be alone." I didn't tell anyone. Not my brother, not my coworkers, not even my mother, especially not her. She'd only say what she always said. "You were always too soft, Lowell. Women like a man who takes charge." She meant well, but she never understood that not all of us were built like bulldozers. Some of us were more like umbrellas. Flimsy, always getting turned inside out in the wind. So I kept everything bottled up, dragging myself through each day like a tired actor in a show I no longer believed in. I still lived in the house, if you could call it living. She hadn't come back since that night. Her things were slowly disappearing one drawer at a time. Every other day, something would be missing. A coat, her favorite coffee mug, the shampoo that used to make the bathroom smell like citrus, and something I once thought was home. At first, I wondered if she was testing me, seeing how long I'd last, waiting for me to call and beg her to return. But I didn't. I couldn't. There was nothing left to fix. We had become two strangers separated by receipts, passwords, and passive-aggressive text messages. Then one Thursday evening, as I was halfway through folding laundry, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I nearly didn't answer. But I did. It was Travis, the guy from the emails. The guy with the man bun and the smug, vacation in Miami grin. Standing right there on my porch with his hands in his pockets like he'd come to borrow sugar. "You're Lowell, right?" he said, glancing past me into the house like he owned part of it. I nodded slowly, unsure if I was dreaming or if this was the part of my life where everything just lost meaning. "She's staying with me," he added. "I figured you knew by now." I didn't answer. My throat was dry and my hands were shaking, but I kept them clenched by my sides. "I told her not to ghost you," he continued, like that was somehow noble of him. "But she said you'd figure it out eventually." Then he smiled, actually smiled, and added, "Look, I'm not here to fight. I just need her passport. She said she left it in the drawer near the keys." I stared at him, blinking. He wanted her passport. To take her somewhere. To make memories while I was left sorting through hers. I didn't say a word. I just shut the door, locked it, and slid down against it until I was sitting on the floor. He didn't knock again. He just waited a while, then left. I knew exactly where her passport was, but I wasn't going to hand it to him. I didn't care if they were flying to Italy, the moon, or a black hole. I wasn't going to be the doormat that handed over one more piece of her. Later that night, I wrote her a message, not to confront her, not to grovel, just to say one final thing. "I hope you find the time you were looking for. I'm going to spend mine figuring out who I am without you." She didn't reply. Instead, the next day, I found a sticky note on the windshield of my car. No envelope. No text. Just her handwriting. "Don't be bitter, Lowell. We both knew you checked out long before I did." That one hurt, because part of me knew it wasn't completely false. I had pulled away. I had grown tired. I had let the silence grow between us like mold in a forgotten fridge. But I hadn't cheated. I hadn't lied. And I hadn't replaced love with logistics. The following week, a legal envelope arrived in the mail. Inside were divorce papers. Her name signed cleanly, boldly. Mine left blank. I sat at the kitchen table with the papers in front of me, a pen in my hand, and a strange feeling in my chest. Not sadness, not anger. Just freedom's weird cousin. The kind that shows up uninvited and doesn't say a word. You don't know whether to hug it or shove it out the door. So I did what I do best. I waited. Didn't sign. Didn't shred. Just waited. Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's just the last piece of armor we have left. I didn't sign the papers right away. Not because I thought we had a chance. Not because I was holding out for some dramatic reconciliation. I just wasn't ready to let her rewrite the ending of our story with a single pen stroke. There's something so brutal about how cold legal ink feels on something that once had warmth. She was off somewhere smiling into champagne glasses and planning spa weekends. And I was here, still doing our laundry, still reheating food for two, still forgetting and then remembering she wasn't coming home. I began noticing all the things I never saw when she was around. Like the fact that she never once filled up the gas in my car. That the spice rack she insisted on organizing alphabetically only ever had spices she liked. That the candle in the hallway bathroom had always been lit not for ambience, but because she hated the way the house smelled when I cooked. It was weird, like peeling wallpaper and discovering someone else's name written on the wall beneath. I realized I didn't really know the version of her who walked out. Or maybe I'd never known her at all. Maybe I was just the guy who paid the bills and took up space in her photo albums. Then came the call. 2 weeks after she left. I was at the grocery store, aisle 6, trying to figure out which brand of frozen pizza was on sale when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it ring out, but instinct made me answer. Lowell. The voice was cautious. Male. Yes. It's Travis. I felt the air leave my lungs like someone had punched it out of me. I hadn't heard his voice since that humiliating moment on my porch. What do you want? There was a pause. And then, to my absolute confusion, he said, I think we need to talk. I walked out of the store without buying a thing. I didn't even hang up. I just told him to meet me at a neutral place, the old railway park by the creek. It was where Dana and I had once gone to argue in private. How poetic. When I arrived, he was already there, sitting on a bench like he was waiting to deliver news that would shift the tectonic plates of my reality. And in a way, he did. She's gone, he said as I approached. I blinked. Gone. She left me too. My mind scrambled to process the words. You mean she moved out? He shook his head slowly, like even he didn't fully understand. No. I mean she took my car, cleared out the apartment while I was at work, and vanished. Took everything. Even my dog. I nearly choked. She took your dog? Yup. Left a note on the fridge. Don't take this personally. I just need time. I sat down, stunned. Not out of pity for him. He was still the guy who helped burn down my marriage. But because this woman I thought I'd known for years had just played the same game twice and won. So what? You're here to compare scars? No, he said, rubbing his temples. I'm here because I found something. Something you might want to see. He handed me a crumpled envelope. Inside were printed photos. Dozens of them. Dana, with another man. Not Travis. Not me. Someone new. Different locations. Different smiles. She wasn't just cheating on me. She'd been cheating on Travis, too. She was seeing him while she was with you, he muttered, his voice brittle. And seeing both of us at the same time for a while. It felt like all the blood in my body relocated to my ears. I didn't even feel angry. I felt numb. Like I was floating above the scene, watching two fools compare the ashes of the same fire they didn't start. I looked at Travis. Why are you giving this to me? He shrugged. Because I realized I wasn't the exception. I was the rehearsal. We sat there in silence for a while, letting the reality settle in like fog around our feet. Two men, both discarded, both humiliated, both left with the same 7-word note from a woman who seemed to have made a career out of dodging accountability. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table again, staring at the divorce papers. And for the first time, I felt clarity. Not rage. Not grief. Just a clean, glassy calm. I picked up the pen and signed, not because she deserved closure, but because I did. I dropped the signed divorce papers off at the courthouse on a rainy Tuesday morning. No symbolism, no dramatic soundtrack, just gray clouds and the sound of water smacking my windshield like slow applause for finally doing what needed to be done. I didn't even park. I used the drop box. One less conversation. One less signature exchanged in silence. You'd think I'd feel liberated, right? Like this big weight had been lifted. But the truth? I felt hollow. Not sad. Not free. Just emptied out. Like someone had scooped out the best parts of me and left a guy who winced at his own reflection. For a while, I coasted. Went to work. Did the chores. Ate whatever was closest to the front of the fridge. I avoided mutual friends. I unfollowed her on everything. I even threw out that sticky note she left me. The one about time and distance. But nothing filled the space she left behind. Not even anger. Just silence. Then came the package. It arrived on a Friday afternoon. No return address. No handwriting I recognized. Just a small box with my name typed in all caps. I thought maybe it was something she forgot to take with her. A sweater. A charger. But when I opened it, I froze. Inside was a photo album. Not digital. Not online. A real, leather-bound photo album. The kind we stopped using around year 2 of our marriage. On the cover, written in gold foil. Moments we made. My stomach dropped. I opened it. Page 1. Our wedding. But not the public photos, the ones only we had. The one where I was nervously sweating through my shirt. The one where she laughed after I stepped on her dress. The one where we kissed, and she pulled away smiling because she had lipstick on her teeth. Page 2. Our first apartment. Tiny, cramped, filled with cheap furniture and optimism. Page 3. A road trip to Michigan. The cabin with the broken heater. The diner where we ate pie at 2 a.m. The lake where she swam, even though it was freezing, just to make me laugh. I kept turning pages, dozens of them, until I found one with a post-it note stuck inside. It simply said, "Don't let these become fiction." My hands trembled. Was this guilt? Remorse? A trap? I flipped the page, and that's when I saw the letters. Tucked in the sleeve behind the photos were 5 handwritten notes, each one folded, dated, and numbered, each one addressed to me, all written over the past year. Before the divorce, before the affair, before she said she didn't have time. I didn't read them all at once. I couldn't. I read the first that night. It said, "Lowell, I know you feel like I'm slipping away. I feel it too. I don't know how to stop it, but I want to. You make me feel safe, even when I'm being cruel. I hate that about myself. I'm working on it. I just don't know how to bring you in without showing you the ugliest parts of me. I know I keep saying I don't have time, but the truth is, I'm afraid you'll stop loving me if I slow down. Dana." I sat in my living room for hours, holding that letter like it might change shape in my hands. I didn't know what to do with it. Was it a confession? A warning? A farewell hidden in a whisper? The next night, I read the second. This one was written 5 weeks later. "Lowell, I made a mistake. Not one of those little ones you laugh off after a glass of wine. A big one. A mistake with someone who isn't you. And the worst part is, I don't even know why. I felt invisible. Like I was living next to someone who stopped looking at me. But I know I stopped looking at you first. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it out loud. Even if you never read this. I'm sorry. Dana." I stopped after that. I couldn't go further. My chest hurt. My hands were cold. I felt like I was inside a memory that refused to let me go. The irony? All this time, I had been starving for her attention, her effort, her honesty. And here it was, too late, too raw, packed neatly in a box with no instructions. She had cheated. She had lied. But she had also written to me like I was still the version of myself I lost chasing her approval. A few nights later, I sat at my desk with a legal pad and tried to write back. I didn't know what to say. "I forgive you" felt too clean. "I hate you" felt too shallow. So I wrote, "Dana, you said you were afraid I'd stop loving you if you slowed down. But the truth is, I was waiting for you to stop running. And I guess we both gave up before either of us noticed we were already lost." Lowell. I didn't send it. I didn't know if she even wanted a reply. But for the first time in a long time, the silence in the room felt full. Not empty. Not heavy. Just full. It's strange how memories begin to shift once you're outside of them. When Dana and I were in it, deep in the routine, the static conversations, the cold dinners, I couldn't see how many things I accepted just to keep the peace. But now that the dust had settled and her voice only lived in the echo of unanswered voicemails, I started remembering things differently. More honestly, like the way she used to flinch whenever I tried to hug her while she was on her laptop, or the subtle annoyance in her voice every time I offered to join her at one of her work dinners. I thought I was being helpful. In reality, I was interrupting the illusion she had built outside of me, a version of her life where I didn't exist. I was a watermark, visible if you looked closely, but easy to ignore under bright light. I finally read the third letter on a sleepless night, the same kind of night I used to spend replaying arguments in my head, crafting responses I never delivered. Only this time, I wasn't angry. I was just curious. The third letter was dated just 3 weeks before she walked out. "Lowell, sometimes I sit in the car after work and don't come in right away because I'm scared you'll look at me like you're still trying. And I don't deserve that. I know I've withdrawn. I know you're hurting. But I'm not ready to admit what I've done. I still want to be the person you believe I am. But I'm failing at pretending. And worse, I think you know. If I leave, it won't be because I stopped loving you. It'll be because I no longer know how to love myself around you. I'm sorry. Dana." That one broke me. Not because it changed anything, but because I had been right. She had been eroding long before I noticed. And the ugliest part? I had stopped trying too. Somewhere along the line, we both stopped trying to see each other. You ever watch an ice cube melt in a glass? That's what it felt like. Our marriage didn't explode. It just dissolved. That week, I began cleaning the house. Not the usual surface-level stuff, but deep cleaning. Closets, old drawers, the garage. I threw away broken lamps, expired spices, tangled cords from electronics we no longer owned. It wasn't about the mess. It was about reclaiming space. About proving to myself that I didn't have to keep carrying dead weight out of guilt. That's when I found it. In a shoebox in the back of our closet. A camcorder. We hadn't used it in years. It was dusty, the battery corroded, but the SD card was still inside. And when I loaded the files onto my computer, I expected to find old Christmas footage or maybe that failed attempt at making a YouTube cooking channel. Instead, I found something else. A video labeled, Untitled, 2:13 a.m. I almost didn't watch it. I hovered over the file for a long time. But eventually, curiosity pushed play. There she was, Dana, sitting on the edge of our bed, hair messy, no makeup, wearing my old hoodie. Her eyes were glassy, like she'd been crying. She spoke directly into the camera. I don't know why I'm recording this. Maybe because I need to say it somewhere safe. Lowell, if you ever see this, I messed up. Not just the affair. All of it. I turned you into an extra in your own life. I know that. I saw you trying. And I kept turning away like you were a mirror I didn't want to face. You deserve better. And I hope someday you believe that. She paused, wiped her face, then whispered, I think I stopped making time for you when I stopped believing I deserved yours. The video ended. I sat in silence for a long time after that. I don't know how long. There wasn't a single part of me that felt better, or vindicated, or even sad. I just felt seen. For the first time in what felt like forever. I didn't reach out to her. I didn't send a letter or respond to her videos. There was nothing more to say. But the difference was, I didn't need to anymore. That weekend, I made a change. I put our house up for sale. Quietly. No drama. I didn't want to live in a memory museum anymore. I took the last 2 letters she wrote me, the ones I hadn't read yet, and sealed them in an envelope. I wrote on the front, for when I forget who I was. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I booked a trip. Alone. No itinerary. Just me, a small bag, and a promise I made to myself to go somewhere no version of Dana had ever touched. A place where I could remember what my own voice sounded like when I wasn't whispering under hers. On the day I left, I paused at the mailbox, holding one last thing I wanted to send. It wasn't a letter, or a plea, or even a goodbye. Just a sticky note. One line. You always said you didn't have time. I finally stopped waiting. 6 months later, I didn't recognize my life. And for once, that was a good thing. The house sold faster than I expected. I left behind more than just furniture and fading photographs. I left behind the version of myself that waited for someone else to choose me. I used the money to rent a little cabin near a lake upstate. Nothing fancy. No smart fridge or granite counters. But it had something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I'd wake up early and make real coffee. Not the reheated sludge from before. I started sketching again, just doodles at first, but eventually full canvases that I never showed anyone. I even picked up freelance tech work from home. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me freedom. And for the first time since Dana left, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation for existing. I never did read the last letter. It stayed sealed in the drawer of my nightstand, along with that envelope labeled for when I forget who I was. And maybe that's the point. I didn't forget. I remembered. Not because of what she said, but because of what I finally chose to say to myself. One afternoon, I was walking by the lake when I saw a couple sitting on the dock. They were young, maybe mid-20s, laughing, holding hands. He looked at her the way I used to look at Dana, like she was his world. And I didn't feel jealous or bitter. I smiled, because I'd loved like that once. And now I loved myself in a quieter, deeper way. I stopped measuring my worth by how often someone texted back. I stopped replying with, I don't have money, every time I felt unseen. I stopped needing to be the victim in my own story. And I started showing up for myself. Every day, even when it was hard. People think healing is dramatic, loud, poetic. But most days, it's boring. It's choosing to do your laundry. It's eating real food instead of cereal. It's not texting your ex when it's late and you're lonely. It's making space where there used to be noise. I don't know where Dana is now. I don't care. That part of my story is over. But if she ever thinks of me, I hope she remembers this. I was never the one who ran out of time. She just never stopped running. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If this story hit home or made you reflect in any way, drop a comment below and share the one moment in your life that changed everything. We'd love to hear your side. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories just like this, raw, real, and worth your time. We'll see you in the next confession.